Severe thunderstorms with tornadoes, large hail, flash flooding, and damaging winds are likely across the lower 48 over the next couple of days. Plus, a significant pattern change is underway, bringing a taste of fall for some and big heat for others. It may also signal a surge in tropical activity just around the corner. We're going to get into all of that, plus a look at your weekend forecast and take a look at the long range and see how that's going to affect us as we go out over the next couple of weeks. We're going to get into it right now, and we're going to kick things off with the severe weather outlook. Welcome in, everyone, and happy Friday to you. Cold Rain's Weather World is the show. Jason Pritchard is your host, and we are going to roll strong today. We've got a lot of weather, and we're going to get through it rapidly. Before we do, though, if you haven't yet subscribed, please hit the subscribe button below and sign up and join the team. We've had a lot of growth on this channel recently, and I really appreciate all of the support. Thank you to all who've joined. Hit the like button if you like the content, and turn on those notifications by ringing the bell. Leave a comment in the comment section, a question, but most importantly, if there's something I can pray over for you, please put that in the comment section. Let me know. Happy to do that. Certainly pray over all of you every day anyway, but if there's anything specific, let me know. We're going to start here by taking a look at the infrared satellite image, and you can see that much of the nation here is under significant cloud cover from the northeast all the way through the entire, basically up and down the Central Plains back into the Four Corners region. A couple of areas of disturbed weather here, bringing some showers around parts of the country. This area here in the Ohio Valley is going to help spark showers and thunderstorms and a severe threat in the lower mid-Atlantic, upper southeast later today. A disturbance moving through South Dakota, bringing rain there. Same again here in Oklahoma and Kansas. Big swirl down here in old Mexico, going to move up here into the Four Corners region over the next few days, bring some rain there. And there's our tropical disturbance we've been watching all week, bring flooding rains to portions of southern Louisiana. And that's what's going on with the satellite. Looking at the severe weather threat this afternoon, as I suspected yesterday, we now have a slight risk for essentially where Minnesota, South Dakota, Iowa, and Nebraska all intersect, including Sioux Falls down to Lincoln and over toward Des Moines, Iowa, and back into central Nebraska. That's where we're looking for our main threat, with tornadoes possible this afternoon, particularly where the states intersect. We've got a low-level jet, a piece of energy in the mid-levels providing spin and shear, and we're going to see several tornadoes potentially in this area. Wind is also a threat. Hail is a threat, especially early on when the tornado threat exists. Eventually everything will consolidate, move into a sort of linear segment fashion, and then we see everything kind of go wind from there. Now look over here in the upper southeast, including Raleigh, New Bern, Virginia Beach, Richmond, up into Roanoke. That's where our threat is this afternoon, for some clusters of thunderstorms getting their act together, with a little piece of mid-level shear helping to organize some of that. There's your wind threat. That's the primary threat over here this afternoon. But really through the mid-south and back through almost all of Wyoming into eastern Idaho and northwestern Utah, we could see isolated severe thunderstorms this afternoon. Tomorrow, isolated thunderstorms possible northern plains over to the Ohio Valley, with a slight risk from eastern Iowa all the way into the far western areas of New York and Pennsylvania, folks. We've got that system that's working through the Central Plains today is going to be impinging on these areas tomorrow, bringing a tornado threat where the spin is the greatest, although it looks like it may be a little bit less of a threat than it is today. Wind threat is a possibility as well, and hail certainly is a possibility, but wind is the primary threat that we'll see out of clusters and line segments tomorrow. And flooding rains. There's going to be lots of rainfall, torrential rainfall rates with some of these storms. So we're going to see a flooding threat exist in many of these areas over the next few days, where torrential rains fall and thunderstorms train. Instability this afternoon going up pretty good here in our threat area in the Central Plains back into the southeast. You can see that instability build, and thunderstorms will eat that up. It'll wane overnight a bit. Still plenty of instability back here in the Mississippi Valley, and as we go on into tomorrow afternoon, that instability continues to exist and persist over the areas of the country where it also feels nasty outside. It's very humid, very moist air mass, very unstable air mass, and certainly where we have little pieces of energy, and we saw those on the satellite, they're going to impinge on this and create showers and thunderstorms. Look at this. I'm going to give you a sneak peek. So tune into the long range here in a minute, but look at this. We've got plenty of dry air starting to work into the Great Lakes, and that will work into New England as we get on out into next week. You can see it really well on the instability map. Look at that boundary, even hints of maybe making it down into the upper southeast where cold rain lives. Please, 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 we need to dry out a little bit. That would bring dry air, less instability, except look what happens as we get way on out in time. Massive instability again next week. We'll look at that when the time comes. Here is the future radar this afternoon. We're going to see showers and thunderstorms late afternoon, mid to late afternoon, start to develop over here in Minnesota and South Dakota. And eventually some of those will merge into clusters and line segments as we go through the evening. But as they begin to form, and the model's not showing a lot of supercellular activity here, discrete supercells, but if we start to see those, we'll really see a severe threat pick up with tornadoes and hail possible. And then back over here into Virginia, if we roll this back a little bit, you can see those thunderstorms start to break out in Virginia and all across the southeast early on in the afternoon, and they'll begin to organize a little bit as the day goes along, starting to organize here in southern Minnesota, and then over into northern Virginia. You can see that just scattered showers everywhere else. Then there's that line segment. We start to really see those things come together over the course of the afternoon. A few more supercells moving in as we get on into the overnight hours. We're in the well into the overnight hours now, and so much of the activities kind of calm down. You see a couple of clusters persisting through the night. As we get on into Saturday, look for your Saturday to be rough here in central Iowa, southern Wisconsin, even Indiana seeing some showers. Hopefully you don't have any outdoor plans Saturday morning. That will clear out as you go through the day Saturday, get into the late afternoon, or early afternoon rather. Lower Michigan, near Chicago, back into northern Indiana, we're looking for thunderstorms to be ongoing, a line segment moving through, bringing wind probably at that time. Thunderstorms along the Appalachians, raining out your Saturday afternoon. So Saturday afternoon is going to be tumultuous up here in parts of the Ohio Valley and the southeast, with scattered thunderstorms around and another cluster working in through the overnight hours into Iowa. And we'll tackle that later on, but that's what's going on, folks. And so as we get on into the afternoon tomorrow, you'll see flooding rains as well. This afternoon, we've got several slight risk, even a moderate risk up here in northern Virginia for flooding rains. So pay attention down here in Louisiana too, still seeing rains from the tropical disturbance and a couple of other areas out west. There's your total rainfall. You can see this a little bit, but your footprint is basically from North Carolina back up through the upper mid-south into the central plains, back around again. That's where we're looking for the most rain, and where these thunderstorms train. Not everybody's going to see flooding, but there will be training of thunderstorms, and you're going to see flooding around Louisiana and in those areas as well. Those are our primary areas for flooding over the next 3 days. Looking at the surface map, there's our boundary. There's a little low pressure system. You can see this here. This is kind of a map that you're used to seeing. Boundary exists like right along the middle Mississippi Valley and over into the southern mid-Atlantic. And that's where we're going to see the focus for showers and thunderstorms, flooding where all of these red areas are. And as we go on out into tomorrow, that boundary sort of sits in the same place, but the little low pressure center is moving to the east, and that brings the severe weather threat. But any of these green areas can see showers and thunderstorms tomorrow. Hazards map, big area of flooding potential over here from eastern Kentucky, most of West Virginia, pretty much all of Virginia. Heat advisories as well in certain areas, eastern North Carolina down into Florida, Arkansas, Mississippi Valley flooding potential down here in South Louisiana too. Red flag warnings in the west where it's hot, dry, and windy out there. High temperatures this afternoon. Feels like fall up here in the north, where you've got 70s across the northern plains and the Great Lakes up into New England, and dry and in the 60s. And I don't think there's a lot of wildfire smoke. So good news up there in Minnesota. Look at that, 61 degrees up here in northern Minnesota. Wow. 90s, hot and humid and cold rain world down here. It's going to be nasty all afternoon. 90s going up through the central plains, and hundreds in the desert southwest, interior northwest in the 90s as well. And there's your air quality. Not bad unless you live around Dallas, over here in eastern Colorado where there's wildfire smoke, and down around Phoenix. Everybody else looking good. Now we're going to take a look at that weekend forecast, and before we do that, we're going to have a weather IQ question. One more question about full moon. Stay tuned. You're going to be a moon expert when all is said and done. Nobody's going to tell you nothing about the moon, because you're going to know it all, folks. And you're going to know what the first full moon in September is called after this too. And that is our question today. What is it called? An axe moon, a corn moon, a goose moon, or a windy moon? You're going to know the answer. If you don't already know it, you're going to know it at the end of the show because I'm going to reveal it to you. If you know it now, though, put it in the comment section. Let me know what you think. We've just about made it to the weekend, and it's going to be nice for some, stormy for some, hot for some, miserable for others, but hopefully you'll all find some time to get out into the weekend. Even where it's raining and storming, you'll have some time through the weekend as we go forward. Look at this, nice temperatures to start out. Saturday, 70s up here in the northern plains across the Great Lakes into New England and the Northeast. We start to get into some 80s quickly. Those we work on down into the mid-Atlantic. Upper 90s through the Southeast. Hundreds making their return back into the Central Plains. 90s everywhere else in the South. Hundreds in the desert Southwest. And maybe cooling off a little bit in the Northwest with a new trough working in up there. Sunday, much the same regime. Still feels nice and dry up here in the northern plains, Midwest, Great Lakes, Northeast. Hot and humid and nasty everywhere else. Pretty much same temperature regime, 90s, upper 90s, hundreds, humid. And then we get back, it's a little drier, of course, out west of the Rockies, but hundreds in the desert Southwest. And again, cooling off, 70s up near Seattle, 80s in Spokane, and back down into Nevada and places like that. So going to be pretty warm in some areas. Other areas get a taste of fall. There is the precipitable water. And look at this. As we go through the weekend, I'm going to show you this. And I'm going to show you who's going to be hot and humid as we go on through the weekend. We saw this a little bit with the instability map, but you can kind of see it better here with the precipitable water map. Shows you where the water vapor is deepest through the atmosphere. And as we get on to Saturday afternoon, really across the northern plains up into New England, looking good out west as well. Everybody in the central plains, east of the Rockies, south of the Great Lakes is baking in hot, nasty, soupy, tropical weather. It's going to feel nasty out there, folks. But look at this. As we get on into Sunday, we get a legitimate push down here toward the south Sunday afternoon, and you start to see that really infiltrate New England. Got a big area of a big trough up here that's working into New England. We'll see that in a minute. But that is really going to bring some cool, dry weather down. It's going to feel like fall for you all as we get on out into early next week through the weekend. And then checking out the precipitation as we get on in through Saturday. We saw some of this on the radar, but big picture view, the future radar anyway. Big picture view Saturday, start the day off up here with rain showers working through portions of the Midwest and mid-upper Mississippi Valley and parts of the South, mid-South as well. And that boundary is going to be lighting up all day long as a little mid-level disturbance moves in, brings plenty of rain through the Ohio Valley Saturday evening. Scattered thunderstorms in the southeast and up in the northern plains as well. We'll see another disturbance moving in there. And as we get on into Sunday, the northeast starts to see some showers as that frontal boundary makes its way on into the south and the mid-Atlantic as well. We'll still see more showers, thunderstorms with heavy rain through the Ohio Valley too as we get on into Sunday afternoon and into the southeast. And that system moves off through the southeast, and that's what happens through the course of the weekend. Now we're going to take a look at the long range and see what tropical implications it might have. All right, there are your Atlantic temperatures in the Atlantic Basin, and as you can see from the coast of Africa all the way to the coast of the United States, temperatures are getting warmer and warmer as you go across from 70s all the way into upper 80s. Way over here, you can see some 90s in the Caribbean, but this is what you would want to see if you're expecting higher probabilities of hurricane production over the course of the next couple of months. Also, there are indications that wind shear is decreasing too as we go out in time, so a favorable Atlantic could emerge in the not too distant future. In the meantime, there are ways that we can get tropical development around the states itself, and I'll show you that here in just a minute. But here is the anomaly map, and it shows you relative to normal the oceans and their temperatures. And so much of the Atlantic, particularly over here in the north and eastern Atlantic, is central eastern Atlantic around Bermuda, definitely much warmer than normal, but warmer than normal everywhere here. So that is favorable for hurricane and tropical cyclone development. Now, we're going to look at the satellite loop here. You can see this is the infrared loop, and it's showing a few waves moving off of Africa, nothing really off of North Africa, but down here you see a wave moving off. So we're going to watch this as we continue to go out in time. There's a little wave working through the Caribbean, nothing imminent in terms of development. The Hurricane Center doesn't have any expectation of any development over the next 7 days, but we're going to keep watching all of that. Now look at this as we get on out into next week. We get to the end of the weekend, we get into early next week. We've got this big blue area that's responsible for that drier, cooler air that I showed you working into the northeast. We've got another trough working in the northwest. Big ridge building over the south central U.S. Watch this as we go out in time. This is the GFS ensembles. That ridge will come through. It'll send a bit of a cold front down this direction. So we get a little backdoor cold front with some drier air working into the mid-Atlantic and upper southeast. Hopefully that will play out. This ridge begins to migrate to the west. That trough works in here and kind of diminishes intensity over time into the west. There's your trough centers. We get on out into mid to late next week, centered over the southern United States, sort of a pancake looking trough. And then it migrates back to the west a bit and centers itself over the nation's midsection and tries to get back west. The European ensembles get it all the way back into the Four Corners region and keep it there, while the GFS operational itself kind of meanders it around. But we're going to follow the ensembles. When you look way out in time, you need to do that. Sort of smooths out the error. But look at this. What you want to pay attention to are these streamlines here, these height contours. They go from northwest to southeast. I've been harping on this, and we're going to see a pattern set up here where we start to see these systems form, convective systems, thunderstorm complexes form up here in the Midwest and work their way on down into the Ohio Valley, lower mid-Atlantic, upper southeast. Those will then go off the coast and maybe rotate around back under this ridge, and I'll show you that, and could potentially produce some tropical development. Now watch this as we go on out in time. You see, don't focus on the exact areas of precipitation weeks in advance from an operational model or days in advance, because they just don't really know exactly where to put all of this. But you can see as we go on out in time, GFS sends some energy into Canada. Some of it's going to start to come down and make its way to the southwest or the southeast like I showed you. There it comes. And watch what happens to it when it gets out here into the Atlantic. You see some of these complexes will get out here and they'll start to rotate back around out in time underneath that ridge. You see that? They kind of get out here, get stuck, and go back around underneath the ridge because of the clockwise flow. If we start to see this happen and things stall in the southeast and the Gulf, we could see homegrown tropical development out here. So we're going to watch that. We've already had a couple of those systems bring some flooding rains in. So that's what's going on there. Precipitable water out. We're going to show this one more time. No really need to beat a dead horse here, but out in time, this starts to diminish, hopefully is the case as we get on out into late next week toward next weekend. We start to get out farther beyond that. We see some of those yellows and reds get really pushed back, and so maybe we'll get a taste of fall across the north and start to see the south extent of those deep moisture profiles diminish a bit. That is the hope. That's what we're looking for as we go way out in time, 8 to 14 days, looking at above normal for much of the country with the exception of the east or the west coast and the northeast, Alaska, kind of mixed below to above, and then Hawaii above. Precipitation with a big ridge, you're not going to see as much precipitation just on the periphery of the ridge, northern portion of the country back down to the east coast and back into the southeast and deep south. You could see a signal for above normal precipitation there. Alaska below and Hawaii near normal. And that's your long range forecast. We're going to take a quick look upstairs, see what the sun's doing, and a quick look below the earth and see if anything is going on there either. And then we'll end the show. All right, there's your sun, and there's your trans-equatorial coronal hole. Crosses the equator. It puts Earth right in the center of that increased solar wind stream. In the next few days, we'll watch for that and watch for any geomagnetic storm conditions that may arise from it. Not really much to show you here on the sunspot map. There's one right at us, but it's not gained in complexity. None of these other ones are either, so the risk of solar flaring is low without any sort of discharge from the sun. The risk of auroras is also low. Nothing going on the earthquake front. There was a 5.4, I think, in Myanmar. Nothing else here in the States. A little shake down here toward the southern border, but nothing going on in Alaska where we had that big quake off of or south of Sandpoint the other day. Nothing to see here on the volcano map and the ring of fire, nothing new out there, but we do have a moon update. Of course, we do every day. It's a waning crescent moon. We're 43.5% going down to new moon here on July the 24th. Sunrise and sunset. We are chopping daylight, folks, off of both ends of the day, counting down to fall. We're getting closer and closer by the day. There's your world, sun, and moon map. We are all in bright daylight here on this lovely Friday afternoon. And that brings us into the answer to today's Weather IQ question. And it is, the first full moon in September is called what? Did you get it right? It is the corn moon. That's right, folks. It comes from Native American and colonial American tradition when it's the time that corn was traditionally harvested. And so all of these moons have a tradition or linked to traditions from long ago, and that's why they are called what they are called, and I will tell you what they're called as we get through them. So that's what's happened today, folks, in terms of the weather. Today in 1968, Intel was founded. Maybe interesting to you. Intel is very, very important, along with other semiconductor companies. And then way back in 64 AD, the Great Fire of Rome began. A massive fire broke out in the city of Rome, lasting 6 days and destroying much of the city. And you may have heard the legend or myth that Nero fiddled while Rome burned. Well, that was definitely a legend that came out of that, but it seems like it was most likely a myth. But anyway, that's that. Now you know history, now you know the weather, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, folks. May not be able to do a video tomorrow, doing some traveling for a family obligation, but Cold Drizzle will be with me. We'll do a short at the very least, but I wish you all a great weekend, and I hope you have a wonderful Friday afternoon. And as always, this is Cold Rain reminding you other channels run 24/7. We got you covered right here, right now, 4814. Take care, everybody.